Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm going to show you how to make a vanity table skirt. The vanity table that we're working on today is the type that has the double swing arm opening so that you can open the table skirt to get to the underside of the table. In order to cover the table top, I'm going to need to remove those swing arms. Also, notice that I have not attached the tabletop to the table base yet. So now I'm going to show you how to remove the swing arms so that we can put the tabletop fabric on. We need to remove this bolt to remove the swing arm, and this bolt requires a 5/8 inch socket and a quick twist of the wrist, a socket wrench, a few spins around, and it will come right out. I'm probably not doing this the man way, but my man is watching golf, so I'm doing it myself. That's not supposed to happen, but hey, it came off anyway. Notice that this table has a socket that holds the bolt so that you won't have to strip the wood. We're going to work around this. This stays in. Leave that there. And make sure you keep the bolt and the washers as they are on the arms. I've placed my tabletop face down on the underside of the silk fabric that I'm going to use for my table cover, and I've begun marking 1 inch around the perimeter of the table. I'm going to go all the way around like this because I want 1 inch leeway to pull around and staple on the underside of the table. This doesn't have to be exactly 1 inch. You can just eyeball it. Nobody's going to see it but you. And I'm going to go all the way around the table marking this, and then I'm going to cut it out. Okay, I've got it marked all the way around, and I'm going to cut it out right on the chalk line, and I'm cutting with pinking shears because this is Dupioni silk and it will ravel. So cutting it with the pinking shears keeps it from raveling and makes a nice finished edge. Remember, this is the underside of the fabric. You want to mark the chalk on the underside of your fabric. I took a minute to press my tabletop piece before I put the table back in position on top of it, and now I'm ready to staple. I'm going to be using an electric staple gun, but a manual one works just fine. And I'm going to be using 1/4 inch staples because they are thick enough to hold the fabric in, but not so thick that they'll be hard to get in. I should be able to get them in just with a staple gun, but if they're sticking up a little bit, I'm going to go back around with a hammer and tack them all the way in. Okay, now I'm going to start on the back side first and work my way back around. Staple them close to probably between the edge of the fabric and the edge of the table. I'm skipping about maybe 3 or 4 inches between staples. And I'm only going to go in that direction a few staples, and then I'm going to come back this way because I'm trying to keep the fabric evenly positioned. If you go too far in one direction, then sometimes it can get pulled one way or the other. If you go this way, it keeps it more even. I wanted to show you how I ease the fullness around the curved corners of the table. You start in the middle and work from the outside and just sort of gather it as you go, and it will ease into the curve very easily. When we turn this over, it'll be flat on the front side. It takes lots of staples, but it does a good job, and you can pound them in with a hammer if they don't go in all the way the first time. I'm almost finished stapling my fabric on the top. I started at the back and worked my way around from side to side, making sure I had the fabric pulled even all the way across. And I eased in the fullness around the corners as I showed you earlier. These are outside curves. I've stopped to show you how we're going to deal with this inside curve. If this were a more severe curve, we would probably snip the fabric and work in the fullness that way. But since it's such a slight curve, and because this Dupioni silk will ravel, I don't want to snip it. So I'm just going to show you how to work in the fullness with the staple gun. This part is a little bit challenging because the drawer is kind of in the way of the staple gun head, and because I don't have an extra pair of hands to help me hold this fabric taut while I staple. But we're going to go for it anyway. I'm going to give this just a slight tug to make sure it's taut from the back side. I don't want any wrinkles on my front side of my fabric, but I also don't want to pull it so tight that I am going to distort or stretch the fabric. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a staple really close to the outside edge just to sort of hold the fabric in place. I may end up removing that staple, and I'm going to put a second staple farther back once I get the fabric where I want it. So I'm going to start off close towards the edge, and I'm not really going to try to put that staple in very deep. I'm just going to it's going to sort of be like my basting staple. Okay, see, that didn't really go in very good because of the angle that I have on the staple gun, because my fingers were in the way. But now that I have the fabric being held tight, I'm actually going to have to tap that one in a little bit, even though it's not in all the way, just to get the staple gun over it. And then I'm going to go to the other side of it and put the staple gun farther back where I want it to go. That way I can push down on the head of the staple gun and get my staple where I want it. See how much nicer that one went in? And then I'm going to go do this on the other side too. Since I can push down harder without having to hold the fabric in place with my fingers, the staples are going in better. Okay, see what I mean? Now I'm going to go back and take this one out. It was barely in there. That way I can go back to the very center and put one more staple back towards the back side. That one didn't go in very good, but I'm just going to tap it in and we're going to leave it at that. Actually, I'm going to give all three of these a little tap just to make sure that they won't interfere with the drawer. That's good. Okay, now I'm just going to finish out doing the same thing, going from side to side until I've gone all the way around. Okay, we've now stapled it all the way around, and I'm going to zoom in and show you how I'm going to work around those little sockets that I showed you earlier that the swing arms are attached to. I'm going to fix that so that the moving of the swing arm won't make the fabric ravel when you open them, and I'm going to show you that on a close-up. Okay, remember the socket that is in place in the tabletop to hold the bolt for the swing arm? I told you we would work around those. I'm going to show you a little trick to keep that from being moved or pushed by the swing arm when it's back in place and making the fabric ravel or come apart. I'm going to put some hot glue on it. There are a few things in the decorating and design world that hot glue won't fix, and this is one of those things that's going to work great for us. So I'm just going to put a little bit in there on the inside edge of the socket. And without burning my fingers, I'm going to push that into it and let it sit there for a minute and dry. And then I'm going to snip that excess fabric. And another thing I'm going to do with the hot glue is I'm just going to run a little bead of it along the edge of the fabric everywhere that this swing arm is going to go, because that's going to be pretty constant wear and tear on the edge of the fabric there. So I'm just going to put a little bead of hot glue there to help cushion that and secure the fabric on so that the swing arm won't make it ravel. Some fabrics you might not have to do this with, but this Dupioni silk is kind of fragile, so I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to smooth it with a flat edge screwdriver so it won't interfere with the operation of the swing arm. Okay, I snipped the excess fabric off of there after the glue dried. That's got a nice secure surface on it now. And I'm going to put the swing arm back on. These swing arms come with 3 washers. I'm going to take 2 of them and put them on the bottom of the swing arm. That's going to give it a little bit of height off of the fabric and let it sort of float over there across there a little better so it won't pull against the staples of the fabric. I'm going to tighten that bolt as much as I can with my fingers. And then I'm going to tighten it the rest of the way with with the socket wrench. I don't want to tighten it so tight that it's going to make it hard to open, so I'm just going to kind of feel and see how that... Perfect, there it goes. It's not even touching the fabric now. I'm glad I went ahead and put that glue there just to have it be sure that it's not going to ravel. I'm going to put the other arm on now, and then we'll turn the table back over and put it on the base, and I'll show you the next step from there.